I asked Kyle Shanahan what gives him hope that next season will be better. And he said a bunch of nothing like, we'll practice and we'll work and we'll battle and we'll do what we always do. That's not. I'd like to hear some specifics. Like, what do you think? Like, realistically, what is the upside here for this team? What do you think?
I mean, at the end of the day, injuries, right? Like, we've had a couple of these years now with Kyle where he runs the team into the ground. We have a couple of years where you can't have anyone, you can't go a game without an injury to someone important. And I think that's the hope is like, there's no way it can go as bad as even with the personal issues, like for the team members, there's no way it can go that bad again. I guess there is, but that'd be awful. But I think that's the hope. One is that. Two, you can retool after John just had an incredible draft. There's some hope. Three, Sorensen improved. Four, Schneider has to get fired. So special teams has got to get better. There's nowhere to go but up for the worst special teams in the NFL. So
I hate the idea that they're going to sell to fans like, hey, hopefully the team's going to stay healthy this year. Like, is Trent Williams going to stay healthy this year? Is Christian McCaffrey going to stay healthy this year? Is Brandon Ayuk going to be what he was? I mean, he'll come back at some point, I would imagine, but he'll have no training camp. So what's he going to look like? I'd like to think that there's going to be some like major roster reshuffling, that like they have so many mercenaries on this team, guys who aren't really embedded in the culture of the team.
Yeah.
And it's like Devondre Campbell was like the worst example of that. Like you should have guys like Kittle who are old, but are like Niners for life, or young guys. Like none of these 30-year-old, I'm here for a year, maybe we'll win the Super Bowl. And if things go south, I'm freaking out of here. You don't want that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's another problem. Is this? I kind of feel like this offseason went up to a rough start because the Niners just seemed really entitled this offseason, right? Like, oh, we went through 3 quarterbacks, made an NFC Championship game. Then the year after, when we finally had a starter, we made a Super Bowl. And so it seemed like they're kind of just like chilling going into this year. Like, I mean, we're going to make it back. Look at us.
Yeah.
Look how good
we
are.
always make it back.
Yeah. We don't need a Brandon Ayuk to be signed immediately. We don't need Trent to be signed immediately. We can have all this drama and it doesn't matter because we're just going to be back.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's another thing that could give you hope is we got punched in the mouth this year. Like
now they know, like, no, you need all your players there for training camp. You do team building in training camp. You don't get to do that at a pizza parlor at a bowling alley in October. Like you actually have to go through the trenches together in August, which they didn't do last year. They kind of try to like skip the process, cheat the process.
Mm-hmm.
And they got smacked down.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that they learned, but then again, with the season on the line, Kyle Shanahan's going to Deebo Samuel left and right. And it's like, man, that's the same mistake you've been making in every loss since the Super Bowl in February. Like you're not giving me much confidence that you're ever going to change.
Yeah. Isn't it weird how outside of last year, Kyle was better with like Jimmy, Emmanuel Sanders, and Mostert than he's been with like more talent? It seems like the more talent he gets, the less creative he gets. Like, I don't know why. It's so weird to me because if you ran the Jimmy Garoppolo offense with Purdy's an improvement.
Let me think about it this way, right? Like any coach who is known for their scheme, offense or defense, being like cutting edge, who's the coach whose scheme has been cutting edge the longest?
Probably.
Like I can't think of a guy whose offense or defense was way ahead of the league for 10 years.
Yeah.
Maybe for 4 or 5, maybe. But essentially people catch up to you because everyone's looking at you. You're dominating the league and people are really smart. So, I mean.
And when you have a target on your back.
Yeah. So it looks like maybe what you're doing isn't as effective and fresh as it was 4 or 5 years ago. Defenses have seen it. A lot of these teams run versions of what you're doing. And now you don't necessarily have a schematic advantage on other teams. You had a personnel advantage on other teams. You had Christian McCaffrey. Oh my God. You had the best player in the freaking league. And now that he's gone, it's like, oh yeah, this is what this team looked like before you traded for Christian.
Yeah. I agree. Like, and you have to remember all the successful teams are not all of them, but You get what I mean. Most of the successful offenses in the league run the Shanahan system. Packers, the Dolphins, the Rams, the Niners. The only one that doesn't has the best quarterback probably of all time by the end of his career. So, sure, you don't have to run the Shanahan system. Just have Patrick Mahomes or just have Josh Allen. Like,
what's scary to me is that the Shanahan system is like as good as its running back. Like,
yeah,
it's like even when his dad had John Elway, it was about Terrell Davis. And like when Kyle had Christian McCaffrey from 2022 to 2023, they were 26-7 in the Christian McCaffrey games. It's like they won 80% of the time. Unless he's going to come back and be that guy again, I'm sort of I don't have that. I don't necessarily have I don't see it. To me, this is a team that like really wants to find out. Like, you haven't figured it out yet. You're not good. You need to change something. If you want to run it back next year and really find out, you'll find out again. You're not that freaking good. Unless, of course, Christian McCaffrey can be the offensive player of the year again. I don't think he can at 29.
I don't think he can. And I think last year was Debo's final gas in the tank. I think he ran out. Like this year, you saw this has been the worst year of his career, in my opinion. Like,
yes,
I've never seen him play as bad as last night, especially. And
the fact that he changed his number beforehand is actually fitting. It's like, we'll always remember the one era for Deebo Samuel wasn't it. Like you got it. If you want to like a nostalgic poster to put on your wall for the Deebo, it's 19. Got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like that's my biggest problem is why are we still forcing the ball? Like, he can be a good distraction. Like, some defenses may still respect him and may still think like, hey, Debo's going to burn us here. And then you can use that and get space. And I think that's what Brandon Ayuk helped a lot with last year, was giving Debo space that he didn't have to try and, because they had to play a lot of zone around BA because you couldn't, besides the Chiefs, people couldn't really run man on him or he burned you. So you had to run zone.
Some guy. I mean, you'd have to have a really good corner to shut him down.
Yeah.
And so unlike Juwan Jennings, he could beat you deep, even though he wasn't the fastest receiver in the league. Now you're paying all that money and you wonder if he'll still have those quicks and if he'll still be that fast, but find out in 7-8 months.
I think that's like the biggest thing for next year is just, you got to hope Christian McCaffrey is even 75% of what he was. And B, you got to hope Debo's gone. Debo, if he's on the team, Kyle will force feed him. He can't help himself. It's like his best friend. And he can't help himself.
Also, they have to improve the quarterback room. It can't just be Purdy and a bunch of stiffs.
Brandon Allen, oh my God.
Purdy with a with a huge fat signing bonus and a bunch of nobodies. Like, no, man, there needs to be some competition. There needs to be some consequences for this awful season. And the consequence is no extension for you, buddy. We're not rewarding 6-8, or this could end up be 6-11. We'll see what this ends up being, but you don't get to miss the playoffs, be middle of the road in every statistic, and walk away as the highest paid player in the league. Absolutely not. Now you can become the highest paid player next year if you ball out like Sam Darnold is right now, but you got to do that. You had the opportunity this year and you blew it.
Here's also my thing. If the Niners do, right, say we trade him or just cut him, right? How many teams you genuinely think are going to pay him $50+ million a year?
Zero.
I can't. Yeah, exactly. So why would the Niners? Nobody would.
Like the value in him is like, if you're running Kyle's system with Purdy, well, he knows it. He's a good fit. I've seen him run it. But if you're not running Kyle's system, why would you want Brock?
Plus, you found that out about Jimmy, right? Everyone was like, all these rumors were insane. Like, Jimmy's going to get a massive deal. The Raiders cut him like within a year.
Yep.
Now he's a third stringer behind.
And
Stetson
whether that's
Bennett.
fair or not, the Jimmy Garoppolo experience in Las Vegas is going to hurt Brock Purdy.
It should,
because everyone knows what happened to Jimmy, and people wonder if the same thing would happen to Brock. I wonder.
I think it would.
It could be happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, and again, a lot of people say like injuries on offense. Sure, missing Trent sucks, but like, the dude's not done what he's done last year. Like, he'll have Jordan Mason underneath, Isaac Orendo underneath, waving. Even the sail to Debo where he was a curl, he was open for like 5 minutes, it seemed like, and then he still overthrew it. And it's just like, why. Like, it seems like he's trying to prove he needs a contract, and in doing that, he is proving why we should not give him a contract.
I completely agree with that. Well put. And it's interesting. You think of him as being like this, aw shucks, doesn't play for the money, and a throwback. Like, nah, man, he's a human, and he had an
Yeah.
opportunity to get $60 million a year, which you probably never thought was ever in the cards for him. And I think it added more pressure than when he first got in the league. The only thing he was trying to prove is that he belonged, which he did a good job of proving. Now he's trying to prove that he's the best. Like, you can't, because you're
And
not.
last year, he was just trying to prove that he was an improvement on Trey Lance. You shouldn't take Trey Lance.
And that he could play coming off that injury.
Yeah. And you know what's
Whole
actually
different
really
thing.
funny about Purdy, right? Is, do you remember, I forget if it was Baker Mayfield's second year, when he did all of those commercials in the offseason, how everyone just reamed him for it because of his attitude, right? Because he always had a chip on his shoulder, yada, yada. But Brock Purdy did 1,000 commercials this offseason.
Great point.
And
it's just that Bakers were like
get his
kind of
bag,
corny.
get your bag.
It was like Bakers were kind of corny. He was trying to be funny, right? It was like he lived at the stadium in Cleveland and he lost his keys, and it's like, God, this isn't cute. But with Brock, it's like, okay, but it is kind of cute stuff, right? It's not, he's not trying to be funny, but it's like he's in a tractor, he's in, he's in a cornfield. It's like, yeah, okay.
Like, when Baker did it, that's distracting. He wasn't working on it. He was just busy making money. But with Purdy, it's like, well, yeah, he needs to get his bag. He needs to be doing this. Like, the bag is $60 million a year if you played well this year. The bag was if you went to the Super Bowl this year. I mean, even with all the injuries, if he just went to the playoffs and had a semi-similar year to last year, you'd be like, okay, yeah, you should probably pay him some good money.
You know what can't happen? You can't have worse numbers than Sam Darnold. I'm sorry. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't. And it's like not even close.
No, it isn't. And a lot of the defense people will use, I could already hear the comments, is, well, he has Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Well, we have George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, and Kyle Shanahan. So you could give excuses. And that's the thing with the Niners that's so funny in the Purdy discourse that's so funny is when you're talking about why Purdy should be good, it's, wow, the Niners are the best offense in the world. But then when it's like, when you're pro Purdy, it's Purdy's doing everything. It's, what is it? Are we the greatest offense? Do we have some of the best players in the world? Or
no one's getting open. There's no separation. They can't run the ball. They're slow. Their offensive line is trash. It's like, I don't know, man. Like, he had Kittle open deep, underthrew him. He had Pierce all open deep, threw it behind him. And he didn't have Juwan Jennings open deep, and he forced it to him and got picked in the red zone. Down 3 in the fourth quarter.
Like, that
to me,
he threw it into 5 coverage.
We always knew he didn't have arm talent, but we thought he was like a mature decision maker. That was a Jimmy G decision.
He's trying to play for the contract and he's playing himself out of it. It's so weird because the scrambling he's done this year, sure. I would say more times than not, the scrambling has been helpful, but it's like these off-platform, one-arm running crossbody throws that just like float for 5 minutes in the air. Like you're playing 3 flags up as a kid. And it's like, it only went 15, 20 yards. And you're like, we're going to pay
a bad
him
look for him in this game. It kind of reminded me of what Jimmy started spinning around in the pocket. And it was like,
oh yeah. Happy feet.
When Brock did like the jump throw in the pocket and then got sacked. Doesn't he look like he looks small in those moments.
Well, did you notice 2 plays before that he completed it? So he got his confidence. He's like, oh,
I know.
Yeah. I'm the man.
Like, oh my God, dude! You're gonna fumble. Don't do that. The jump throw in the pocket before he gets sacked. I don't like that.
The 3, yeah, I didn't like that whole 360. But this was the thing at Iowa State, right? Like after Purdy went off, like I watched some. I'm not gonna claim I was like, oh yeah, I studied his film at Iowa State. I watched a lot of his film at Iowa State, and you saw it at Iowa State. He would get confident. It wasn't like Jimmy. Like Jimmy would start playing bad and then panic and happy feet into 6 interceptions in a row. Purdy's the opposite. He'll play well, get his swagger, and then just start like doing things where like, bro, what are you thinking?
Who do you think you are?
Yeah. Like we're driving Juwan in 5-man coverage. I'm just throwing it up. It's like, what just happened?
Well, here's the thing. He's doing that more and more, and I feel like he's making worse and worse decisions. And since that Ravens game, which was almost a year
That
ago.
was bad.
He's 9-9 since that game, all things considered, with a quarterback rating of 91. If Jimmy ever had a stretch with the Niners, I don't think he ever did, where he was 9-9 with that kind of a quarterback rating, people will be up in arms about this
I
guy.
wanted him gone when he was playing well.
And I think this is what people don't get. Like with Purdy, he's gotten so much grace. People have been so nice to him. But if he had gotten paid, let's say he got paid, what's the money thing, man? People aren't nice to people who are rich. They're just not. You're not. It's just the way it is. So if he had gotten paid after this last season, after that Super Bowl, and he had this past season making $50 million a year, people wouldn't give him excuses. They wouldn't be nice. They'd be saying mean things, just like they did for Jimmy. And that's why another reason why he can't handle the weight. He can't handle the weight and the pressure of that.
It comes down to it. Like, is he a good dude? Yeah, amazing. Is he a good quarterback? I would say that's his ceiling is good. I would say he's a good quarterback. Do you want to pay a good quarterback? Would we pay Darnold $60 million a year? No. And he is going off right now. He was at the first half of the year. He was like, people were like, "Oh my gosh, Sam Darnold MVP." Would you pay Derek Carr $50 million a year?
And if the Vikings, who aren't necessarily a premier franchise, are getting this type of production out of Sam Darnold, and they're not freaking out, and they're like, "Okay, that's cool, but we understand that we're a big reason for his success, and instead of just giving him all this money, we might want to see if we can have success with another player for a little bit cheaper. We do have JJ McCarthy. Who's to say JJ can't do the same stuff?" Like, I love that approach from the Vikings. Like, okay, we're in a great situation. Let's not overreact.
They didn't even freak out last year when they lost
Niners.
Kirk.
If they had Sam Darnold with 28 touchdowns and 10 picks, they'd give him a lifetime contract.
That's my worry about Purdy, is we did it with Jimmy, and the Niners have like this, I don't even know what to call it, because it's not recency bias. It's like best moment bias. Like, well, you remember 2023 when Christian McCaffrey was like one of the best running backs of all time? Nice. Yeah, it's like Brock Purdy played so well. It's like, sure, but in my opinion,
Daniel Jones had a good year too, man. Like, well, look at him now.
It's one of those things where it's like, who I could see the Niners even drafting is like some 7th rounder, like, or like someone like a Dylan Gabriel in like the 3rd round, another short, quick pass, older senior, and you're just like, please fix the problem. The problem is not you need a different quarterback that can't throw it over 30 yards. The problem is you need to find talent. Trey Lance was a good find, I guess. Whether you hate him or like him, you got to respect the cojones it took to jump to try to find a franchise guy. We got to do that again. We have to. Purdy isn't it. We saw it last night. We saw it in Buffalo. So we can't play in the rain, can't play in the snow. We can't play in 70 and sunny every single game.
He fumbled in Minnesota because it was 80 and humid. True story.
Exactly. Like, what's a franchise? How does that look like a franchise quarterback? He played great last year. Yes, I'm not taking away with him. He had great stats.
He was so bad last night. He was
horrible.
So bad. And like Lombardi's trying to act like it's just one bad game. Oh, man, the whole season was on the line. And he wasn't just like, if he was mediocre, that wouldn't have been good enough. But he was flat out awful, just terrible. Like Lombardi was making fun of Caleb Williams last week, man. That team is dead, had nothing to play for. Brock Purdy was on a good team with something to play for and was just as bad.
Like, and did Purdy, like Purdy threw 330 yards. It looked great, right? It looked great from the box score. And it looked pretty good from the game. He had a couple, opportunities where he could have really like put his foot down on it and stamped it. But dude, last night, that's where that's where your franchise quarterback shows up. In the rain, in the snow, in the mud, in the humidity, in bad situation, when the players are injured. I don't care what you can do against the Chicago Bears when everyone's back and everyone's happy. And Kyle's in his Kyle coached the best game I think I've seen him coach in 2 years against the Bears.
He did. Well, he was trying to get that job, as you can see. Clear.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
how could he be that good against the Bears and that bad against the Rams 4 days later?
McVay has a chokehold on his brain.
Apparently.
I don't get it. I think everyone's caught up to Kyle. Besides the brand new head coach in DC over in Chicago. If you notice, like, that was it. That was why. What do you mean? They just fired Eberflus. They're DC's first time being a DC basically was there under their new head coach with a rookie Caleb Williams who just Sorensen's smart. He saw what everyone's seen. Caleb kind of struggles against the blitz like most rookies. Just send the house, overwhelm him, give Brock Purdy 48 chances, and he'll throw for 300 yards.
James says, when are you looking at draft prospects? I'm going to start looking at Drew Alar like today.
Drew Alar looks incredible.
That's your homework assignment. Drew Alar, Penn State.
God, he looks good. Yeah, I think he's young.
Sean says Purdy's replacement is on the team. Mordecai should get a look. Kyle can rinse and repeat and draft a guy in the next 2 years. I would rather watch Tanner Mordecai start the next 3 games than Brock.
I agree. I would, but I would not put my faith in Tanner Mordecai personally.
No, I wouldn't either. But we've seen enough from Brock. The season's over. You failed. I want to see Tanner.
But I kind of like what your dad said. We're the 49ers. You don't roll over. You don't pack it in.
Hey, how do we know that Tanner doesn't give him a better shot to win than Noodle Arm Magoo over here?
And if his labrum really is torn still, because that's the excuse.
If his labrum is torn, then I want to preemptively apologize for calling him Noodle Arm Magoo. That was just rude. But if it's not,
everyone says it is. And they're like, well, that's the excuse. Like, he's still dealing with a shoulder injury. Okay, then yeah, let him pack it in.
I asked. They said he's not. I've asked every different which way. I said, are they giving him injections? They said no.